and welcome back to Dev Game Club, a weekly podcast in which two veteran game developers look at games from the past to discuss their relevance and impact today. I'm Brett Duval, and I'm joined as always by my co-host, a man who has his exits and his entrances, and in his time plays many parts.
Tim Longo.
There you go. Know that one?
That sounds very familiar.
Yes,
almost
it's
Shakespearean.
It is very Shakespearean. It's a little bit of Hamlet there for you. You're gonna stretch your time on the stage.
It was Shakespeare, right?
Yeah, it's Hamlet.
Nice.
I should have pulled that out for Final Fantasy IX, but didn't occur to me at the time. Would have been very appropriate. That would have been. I'm never quite sure when these are done, so there's always that pause when it's like, oh, okay, is
now
that it?
Is this is about a bit?
I need to signal somehow.
No, it's okay.
We can't see each other. It
builds suspense.
It does. We're like, who is this? Oh my God, who's the other guy?
I'm proud that I knew it was Shakespeare. At least I didn't know the play, but
yeah, well, that's hard to pull out when it's not in iambic pentameter.
Yeah, the performance wasn't great, so I couldn't tell.
Yeah, I don't blame you. I'm no Laurence Olivier projecting my voice like this.
Yeah, the kids don't know who that is.
No, that's true. I was trying to come up with somebody more modern who's done Hamlet. I don't. Mel Gibson did Hamlet in '92. Still too old.
Kenneth Branagh,
Yeah, he did it.
Ray Fiennes did it. Yeah, not a movie.
No, I haven't seen Fiennes. Okay.
He did a famous stage play. But we digress as usual.
Yes, as usual. We're off into Shakespeare. When really, we should be shaking spears.
Wow. Nice. That was quick.
Yep. I figure that's probably what you're doing. I myself have armored myself up with a minigun at times, a laser rifle. I mentioned last time I had a rocket launcher. I've had a flamethrower, which I wasn't keen on.
Oh, man.
I just
you're just naming all of it's ridiculous.
All the weapons you'll never touch.
It's ridiculous. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's self-imposed. I will admit. I did get the power fist finally.
Okay.
So, and I did eventually get the power armor. So I haven't used it that much. So we'll see how useful or effective. It seems like it's pretty darn good. So I think it'll help me a lot with those darn death claws. Yeah, no,
it's very. It's as effective as the higher end pistols. So, if you are very good unarmed, I'm sure it's very good. Now your strength is large, so you're probably doing.
I'll be at 10. Yeah, and because I have a couple different, which I know we want to get into, sort of like our leveling up builds and our strategies there. To jump into that a little bit for myself. There's a perk that ups your, basically lowers the number of action points you need to use hand to hand.
Oh, good.
And then there's also one that increases the damage of hand to hand that you can take multiple times. So I've taken the action point one, and then I've taken 2 of the damage. So I've doubled my damage up there, and then I can actually punch 5 times per round.
Wow.
And that's without the power armor on yet. So the power armor has given me 10 strength, and I have 10 agility now. And then with the power fist, I'm thinking I should do pretty well. But all of my followers are dead now. So
like 22 minimum, maybe 22 to 32. I want to say. So
minimum, yeah. Because I can hit around 10-ish. I'd say the average is probably 10 per punch right now.
Okay.
So I can do pretty, and it's two action points per punch.
Wow.
So it's pretty effective, but the problem is when I get surrounded, because everyone comes to me, right? Like they just charge.
You have no help.
And I have no help now. Well, recently lost my help in the last battle right before, just today, actually.
We'll have to both talk about how we lost our help.
Oh, yes.
And how it affected us. That'll be a good thing to touch on.
Yeah. So how has your build been? What's been your tactic?
I wanted to talk more about just how I go about with my build, which is I level up as late as I possibly can. In the sense that I hold the points back until I reach a challenge that I'm having difficulty with.
Interesting.
So because my small guns was already like near 100%, like 99 or something like that. Mm-hmm. So I was just kind of going around shooting everything. And then I finally got into the, some more of the death claw type stuff and super mutants. And I found that I wanted a little more punch. So I had like 80 level up points, 80 skill points to put in, just dumped them all into big guns and started using the big guns like crazy. And just held all that stuff back. At one point I put a few into like some ancillary skills. I think I put a little bit into lockpicking to resolve the Thieves Guild quest because there was a locked chest that I couldn't get into. But I had like 100 points, just like, I can just sprinkle some in there until it feels like, 50, that's probably good. Maybe 60, whatever. So I ended up doing the rest of the Thieves Guild quest. I went back to Necropolis. One of the first things I did, actually, is I went up and I found the base, just to know where it was.
Yeah, me too.
So I could get the XP for reporting that. Mm-hmm. And also, so when it came time that I wanted to just make a mad dash up there, basically after this week, I would actually be able to just go quickly to do that and finish it out, because I don't think there's a lot of other things I want to do in the game. So I went and did that, and it was helpful. There's only a few mutants outside. So I went and found that. I killed all of them. I didn't need to dump a lot of stuff. But then I went down all the way back to, via Brotherhood of Steel, I went to Necropolis, and that's where I lost Ian at last. And I just let him go. I used that to fuel my rage against the mutant hordes who had taken over Necropolis.
That's where I lost him too, actually.
Oh, really? The first time?
Yeah.
And so I then I became, like the alien in that old Star Trek Next Generation episode, and I'm killing all Husnek, except Husnek is mutants. That's a deep cut for third or fourth season Next Generation. So.
Wow. Yeah, I don't even know the reference, actually. I'm drawing a blank. I lost
two old people living on a planet. No, not ringing any bells. And he's an alien.
Nope. Mm-mm.
Nope. Okay.
Interesting. Yeah, I like that tactic of keeping the skill points back. It's true. Once you get your primaries up near 100, I am finding that I don't really know what to spend my skill points on. Right. Because I don't really have an other emphasis, and I did put it into repair some because I knew I was going to need it for the power armor eventually. Mm-hmm. And then I have been kind of keeping lockpick just in the theme of my character being kind of a thief type character. And I actually totally forgot about the Thieves Guild quest, so I actually haven't done that. Mm-hmm. So now you've jogged my memory again that I should go back. I haven't been looking at any facts or anything, so I totally am not keeping track. And haven't really been back to the hub very much. And I've been very perk centric because I need those perks to up my my hand to hand because it's my only option. I think
that's interesting. So what level are you?
I am 9 or 10, I think, something like that. So I'm not very high.
That's about right. Yeah, it might be 8.
Yeah,
it might be 8 or 9.
Yeah, I may not be. Yeah, I may not be 10 yet. I think I'm 9 or 10, somewhere around there. But that's like I just got that. And oh man, yeah, I mean the leveling is pretty slow in this game, I think, in the grand scheme of things.
It is. I mean, I looked in the manual, and apparently you can go up to level 23.
Yeah, I saw that, like Savior of the Waste or something.
But I can't imagine that happening.
No. Well,
like, I mean, how many hours would you have to spend? I mean,
yeah. Well,
because the random encounters are not frequent either. Yeah, and the time limits. Although you may not have the time limit, or you may have 13 years of time limit for the mutants, because you're playing the Steam version, which may be patched. We don't know.
Yeah, we were trying to figure that out, and for the audience, but we weren't sure which version had. I think actually we had a listener, which, somebody wrote in right about that.
Yes, and they said that there was a patch that removed the time limit, but that didn't. I don't think it specified whether or not that was that was the case in the Steam version.
Yeah.
It feels like, I don't know. It feels like it would probably be in the Steam version, but I don't know. I legitimately have no idea. I am still playing off my old disc. It's very funny. I know when I'm about to, kill somebody in a gratuitously grotesque way, because my CD-ROM starts spinning up. Because for memory reasons, they didn't keep a lot of animations in memory, and they actually streamed them off of the CD, which is not something we would do today. I mean, today, all that stuff gets cached onto a hard drive if it doesn't fit into memory. But Fallout kept a lot of stuff on the disc, I guess.
Wow.
Which is really amusing to me to be like, oh, I know I'm about to get a bloody mess kill on this Deathclaw because, oh, there goes my drive. Oh, and there's the kill. Yay.
Yeah.
It's very amusing. This subtle signals. Sometimes it's just the knockdown, but it's much better when it's like, oh, and I just blew everything's arms off. Awesome.
Yeah, I don't really... I miss that. And actually, that happens to me and my followers more often than not. Yeah, my last, on my trek up to the military base, just to kind of trigger that whole thing, I had Tycho at the time, because Ian was
long I haven't even found. Who's Tycho?
Yeah, he's where... Do you want me to tell you, or do you care?
It's fine. I'm not going to go back.
Yeah, he's in Junktown. He's in the bar in Junktown.
Really?
And he's just kind of standing there as a kind of a merc, and kind of happened upon him. And he's just this bald dude, like myself, and shotgun kind of guy. And then Dogmeat finally, in that same fight, basically on my way up to the base, one of the random encounters that hit me in the wasteland before I got there was like 6 super mutants, and two of them had miniguns. So luckily the miniguns took out like 3 of them in the process.
Yeah, that happens a lot. Yeah.
So I think it's probably the only way that I survived, but Tycho and poor Dogmeat.
Poor Dogmeat.
Yeah, and I actually was surprised Dogmeat made it that long. I mean, Dogmeat was around for many battles and survived. So I even used stimpacks on Dogmeat a couple of times.
Oh, really? I guess you could do that. Sure, that makes sense.
Yeah, I didn't have the heart. But ultimately, I'm sticking to my guns with my plan, and now I'm solo again. I don't know if there are any more followers. Actually, I haven't found anybody else that might come in handy.
I don't remember. I mean, I typically in the past have not loaded up, like in these sorts of games, I usually don't even get the followers. Like, I don't think I've ever had Dogmeat in the original Fallout. I had him in Fallout 3. Certainly in Fallout 4, he's unavoidable. Fallout 3, you could kind of miss him. You could see messages in the window like, Dogmeat is dying, and you're like, well, I don't even know where he is.
Yeah,
that was a little hard to control, I guess, at the time. But anyway, but the original Fallout, I don't think I ever had any followers. I know I did in Fallout 2 because there's a really tough guy. Right at the beginning, you could get bald, mirror shades, spiky leather jacket, and I got him. I don't remember his name, but I do remember I would get him and go around with him. But yeah, mostly not. Mostly because it just kind of slows down the combat to have more agents. Which most of the time I don't mind. It's if it's tight and close, like 8 or 9 in a small inside one screen is a perfect number for the tactical combat. We had talked even in the first episode about how the turn-based combat, kind of works for you and it works for me still. And I was kind of wondering, what are the elements that make it work? Like, when does it work? And then, of course, I found an example where it, for me, really did not work. And I'll get to that in a minute. But I like, I like the sort of, I'm watching a game of chess where I only get to move once and my opponent gets to move a whole bunch of times. And then I got to figure out what I'm going to do. And I can see it all going, and I can make these decisions based on this limited resource, and think through a number of, issues to make a decision. Those are the elements that I think are really strong. about tactical combat.
Yeah.
How about you?
Yeah, for me, I think the same. A lot of the same things. I think one of the things that I often reflect on every time I play this game or one of the Fallout games, specifically, I'm trying to think. I actually haven't played the new XComs and probably need to do that because I'm sure they sound very good. But I'll be honest, like especially action RPG games, there's certain frame of mind that I need to be in to actually enjoy them because they're so Twitch based, and I just get tense, and I'm good at them, but I'm not great. And I think with the tactical games like this one, I feel like I have a good opportunity to really take a breath, and and the thing that I always loved about this particular game is there still is plenty of payoff with the way, even though it's pretty low fidelity, right, for the modern age, playing this today, there's the bloody mess and there's the knockdowns and there's, you still have a sense of, there's gratifying combat going on in there, even though it is turn-based. You're shooting, well, not myself in this playthrough, but in your playthrough and others, you're shooting awesome weapons. And so some of the fantasy fulfillment is still in there, but you still have to, make thoughtful tactical decisions. And for instance, for me, with the Death Claw situation in the Boneyard, is that what it's called?
Yes.
I could not, even with my followers, we really couldn't take on more than one Death Claw at a time. So I actually had to use stealth and very methodically trigger the combat, usually by throwing a grenade in there to start it off, and then really make sure I could corner one away from the other one so the others wouldn't enter into combat, and then be very meticulous about the locations of everything to lure it toward us,
Right.
And you can't, it's just really hard. It's harder or just different to do that in say, a Diablo type game, right? Where you might be, essentially I'm kiting, but in a turn-based way.
Yeah. Well, the place where it breaks down for me the most, actually, one more thing. One very satisfying thing is how well it's supported with audio as well. You have those, as you mentioned, sort of the cool weapon sounds and all that stuff, but you also have that great opening sound, mechanical, when it opens up the window to say, oh, it's your turn or whatever. And, and it's fun to watch the various creatures yell out, I'm going to get you, basically.
Yeah.
But in different, in very well written ways. Like they have their own unique character. It's not one list of things that they all say. It's mutants say different things.
Oh yeah.
And they say some really nasty things about how they're gonna grind your bones down and things like that. Whereas whatever glowing ones are going to be very different. And they kind of moan a lot, and so you have a lot of sort of audiovisual cues that are still part of the character of the world, like we've talked about before, about how this is so, both the sort of 50s stuff, but then the kind of out there elements. It's just another way to reinforce all that stuff, and they kind of pulled it all the way through into the combat. So I do really appreciate that.
Yeah, and I mean, something that related to that I really was starting to notice the subtlety of that I didn't remember from before, both on the audio side, but also some of the effects. I mean, they have really great sound design for criticals. They have really great sound design for the killing blow. When most of the time, at least because I'm punching a lot, so I can hear it.
You get that big thump.
Yeah, and okay, they're going down, right? And then they make sort of like the death rattle sound is, okay, that one's dead. And then you see the pool of blood, which is the telltale, like, okay, we killed it, and there's just a lot of little subtle things there that they did a great job clarifying for you. So you have that sense of, closure, and that, you need to move on. And also I just love kind of needing to, especially for my build, needing to count my action points, and really methodically pick each of those apart, to know what I need to do in what order to actually not run out. Because every pip counts for me. Like I I can't mess something up, and then I have to hope for high damage. That's the only frustrating thing is the die rolls.
Right, sure. I actually found late, and they can be pretty widely varying too. Like, a missile is like 35 to 100, and it's like, oh my god, It's hard to plan around 35 to 100, like almost 3 times as much damage. You could do, but you might not. So that's been tricky. I actually only discovered in this session that you don't have to equip a stimpack to use it.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Me too. I forgot about it until this last session too.
Totally forgotten about it. If I even knew about it, I must have known about it.
You mean in your inventory?
Right. You can just open your inventory, which takes a certain three action points, something like that, 3 or 4.
Mm-hmm.
What I had been doing was opening the inventory and then putting it in my second slot, switching to the slot and using the thing. Which, when you fight some of the big death claws, that doesn't work out so well because you run out of action points, and now it's the next turn, and they might do another critical, and you're done.
Yeah.
So when I finally discovered today that you could actually just go in there and use as many as you want without changing your layout for battle, that was a good discovery. Would have liked to known that earlier, but.
Yeah, and I don't know what I'm going to do. We talked about this last episode, but because of this build that I have, this hand-to-hand, I'm really running low on stimpacks, and I haven't been finding a lot to replace the ones I have. So I really have to, I have to use a lot of them, especially during the Deathclaw fights because they're just up close and personal. Right. So I'm really, really worried about the end of the game.
I want to say there's a dealer in Hub, the general store, maybe.
Yeah.
Where you can always buy them.
Maybe. Okay. Well, and I'm also running out of money.
That vendor. Yeah, that's true. Well, there's that. I think that vendor constantly, literally
replenishes. Yeah.
Yeah, constantly.
Won't run out.
Reopen that dialogue, and you get the same stuff. I think every time.
Yeah.
Because that was one place where I built up a lot of money because that vendor always had 2,000 caps or whatever. So I could always go take all 2,000 caps and then quit and then start it over again.
Ah, jeez.
So I could just sit there and do it for 10 minutes and be done for the rest of the game. Get all the money I need.
Oh, jeez. Yeah. Barter.
One thing I did lose was
Barter
Ian.
Town.
Yeah, when Ian died, he was carrying a ton of my stuff. But I don't think I need it.
Well, you can loot him, or you could have.
You can, I think, but they're his leather thing was on top, and then I'm like, so I'm going to have to pick up, how many things am I going to have to pick up before I start getting to the things I actually want? And I'm already very close to my maximum weight.
Yeah.
So I just was like, you know what? It's fine. No biggie.
So
huge deal. I'll come back, I guess.
Well, it sounds like you don't really need to worry about that stuff, basically, right? You can find what you need. I've had a lot of trouble with weight management because strength isn't my main one, but strength does impact hand to hand. So I wanted to keep it up a little bit, but I took small frame as one of my traits. So I actually was bumped down. So I've been doing a lot of micromanaging, putting a bunch of stuff into lockers and on shelves and stuff, and then coming back and doing, basically going back and forth to kind of ferry the stuff to the store so I can maximize my money. So it's been a real pain to deal with that stuff. And I think encumbrance in general is kind of, I get it, and it's something that was carried forward into 3 and 4. So I understand it. In New Vegas, but there's always that moment when I'm like, really, is this that necessary? But it does add to that sense of survival and kind of like making meaningful decisions about what you're going to keep on your person, and to go to the next location. So I applaud the discipline to keep that sort of feature pretty ruthless, I think for the player, but I understand why people complain about it.
I think it's a better thing to keep than, say, needing to eat, in games, which is a thing, right?
Yeah.
I mean, in RPGs, and that was a thing. That was a thing in like later Ultima games. Like you always had to have food and water on you. You know, I want to say like 5, 6, 7, that kind of time frame, maybe. And you had to do that stuff. And then in the Waking Mars game, or no, Martian Dreams game. Sorry, Waking Mars is a totally different game. In the Martian Dreams Ultima game, which is a kind of an adventure, Ultima adventure, still an RPG, but they were called it Worlds of Ultima or something. You had to chew this like blue bubble gum everywhere. This was like oxygenated to, you know, help you survive in the Martian, you know, low oxygen atmosphere. So you're constantly like managing, because all your characters had to have it. So you're like sharing around and you're dragging every inventory, and it's just like, you know, it was pointless. Like, yeah. I mean, again, it put that pressure on, but it's like, I don't have any signposts of where I'm supposed to go. So I guess I'm just going to be reloading. Is that fun? I mean, I'm going to go in this direction. I'm going to run out of whatever food it could be, or this special resource. I'm going to run out of that thing, and then I'm going to be stuck. There's no decision to be made there. There's just grind. There's just crap. You know.
Yeah, I think
there's no pony under all the poop. You know, is what I'm saying when it comes to that system. But encumbrance does have the the pony of making difficult choices. So
yeah, and I think especially in a survival themed game, which, you know, post-apocalyptic games would be within, and Resident Evil and the survival horror games tend to, you know, item and resource management is actually a core tenet of that genre. It doesn't actually work without it. Even though people always complain about, I didn't find enough typewriters, or I didn't find enough, you know, whatever, green herbs or what have you. But it's kind of like it kind of, the design breaks down, even though that's academic to say it that way, and I understand people's frustration. And then the other thing that encumbrance does, especially in RPGs, which I kind of academically know, but I'm always a little mixed on as a player, is it creates that loop where you need to go back to town, basically, right? There's a point when you have to make the hard decisions about what you're going to bring with you, because you can't bring it all. And then it forces you to make the decision to, you know, basically go back to a place where you can actually sell it or what have you, and kind of causes this sort of this loot or reward loop to occur, which is also important. But I don't know. I think RPGs.
It also, I mean, in this game where you've got, you know, lots of different bullet types and gun types, I think, which isn't something you're having to deal with, but, you know, for me, I have to actually go and look and say, okay, which of these guns do I actually need to keep?
Yeah.
You know, is the one I actually want to use. So it actually, the encumbrance helps me in that way, because at a certain point, I just can't pick up any more ammo or another gun or whatever. You know, early in the game when I was trying to, you know, get my barter stuff going, I didn't have a lot of money to play with. You know, I carried around 6 rad scorpion tails until I could unload them, and then I had all the money I ever needed again. But as I started to pick up lots of guns, I was like, well, okay, well, maybe I should give this one to Ian, you know, because I think it's better than what he's using, and then I'll tell him to use his best one, and then, I can give him all this ammo, etc. And so I could kind of make those sorts of decisions, and it would prompt me to do that, basically. It's like, I can't pick up anymore, so now it's time. I'm more of a type of person who's like, I can't carry any more stuff. Let me just dump a bunch of crap, you know, because I don't. That's me in general. It's not specific to my barter heavy build here in Fallout. I mean, just in general, I just don't care.
You're just like, I don't care about this book. I'm just dumping it on the ground. Is that what occurs?
Yeah, pretty much.
In real life, yeah.
Yeah, pretty much.
Well,
I had a Roomba. It's under here somewhere.
Well, the irony, I mean, we've talked about this before, how OCD I am and how, like, min-maxy I can be. Like, I mean, when I took out all of the cons up in one of the raider bases up there at the beginning.
Yes. Yep. The one near Shady Sands.
Yeah, and I was, saving Tandy after she was kidnapped and all that stuff. And, I basically took everybody out, and I was powerful enough to do that even with my build. And all their leather armor's laying on the ground and all their stuff. And I'm like, oh my God, I can't leave this stuff here. It's worth money. So I didn't do everything, but I probably half of it I actually picked up, ferried it back, came back, picked it up, ferried it back, and like just so I could maximize my money. Wow. Now I don't have I have a money problem, and like you don't. So that was a decision I felt like I needed to make. I don't know if I needed to do it, but that's how anal I am about this stuff.
Right. Well, at that point in the game, I hadn't discovered yet that I had a money. I had money surplus.
Right.
It happened soon after that, I guess, when I initially played. But that it was actually having that stuff is what built when I realized I just sold that, but I can buy it back for how much? So that was when I actually realized. I think it was after taking out that base. So it would have been the second play. Maybe it was the first play. Don't recall now. But yeah, it's. I don't know. I'm still mixed on encumbrance.
I mean, I don't.
In a Resident Evil game, I think it has to be there.
It has to. No, it does. It does. And I don't. I think it.
And so do the typewriters. As much as I hate that, like I hate the not being able to save anywhere. I also I feel like it has to be that way in that game.
It builds tension. They did some refinement of that in the special edition, blah 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 version of that. So I don't remember how they changed it because I don't think it was like the original. They made it a little bit less punishing. But I mean, and the other controversial example of a game in this regard was Dead Rising 1, which I actually loved, and it's a very love-hate kind of game. But with all of the time limits and all of the only saving in certain locations. The tension that you feel when you're trying to get from one place to another because of those, those limits. Speaking of basically the resource of the typewriters in Resident Evil, similar thing. Like it adds value to the genre.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think of those too.
So
actually, I had one other thing about tactical combat.
Oh yeah.
So we should before we move on to anything else. Tactical combat, for me, gets overwhelming when it's either too long between decisions for me or too short.
And interesting.
By too short, I mean I'm thinking not of this game, but in like Temple of Elemental Evil, where you've got, 5 characters, I don't remember. But I didn't like the tactical combat in that game as much because I felt like I'm constantly making decisions that are widely variant in like what their effects are going to be. So I had a hard time with that game, particularly as the battles got more difficult towards the end, where I'm just like, oh my God, I'm just like overwhelmed. I just have too many decisions. Which is funny because I don't get that way in JRPGs, but in those, they're more streamlined to like, well, it's going to be basically your main thing, whatever your main thing is, you're going to mostly do that. And then you might have a secondary ability you use occasionally. Whereas if you're playing a D&D style, game that has, you've got a spellcaster and they've got how many spells, right? And then you've got a cleric who could be doing some defensive buffs versus healing versus maybe even some offense, So you've got this huge variety, especially in the spellcasters, of things that they're going to do. And it's like, I don't like, there's too many decisions too quickly that I'm making. Fallout actually is in a perfect sweet spot most of the time where I move, 3 or 4 other things move, and maybe Ian moves, R.I.P. Ian. And then, and then I get to move again. And while they're making their decisions, it's like a changing chessboard, like I said earlier. And I'm like, oh, okay, now I have this opening that I didn't have before, or now I want to back up, or whatever, or I'm getting surrounded, or, oh, thank God that guy took off running, whatever it is. So there's a sweet spot. There is one battle I've had in this game that the tactical combat is just overwhelmed. It's a huge battle. It happens down in the Boneyard, which is, I think, L.A.
Yeah, yes, it is.
The Angel's Boneyard, right?
Yeah.
And it's after the Death Claws and the Gunrunners and the Blades, and you come back and you can basically liberate this city from the guards. There are like a dozen guards. You bring in like 5 or 6 of the Blades, and then ultimately, because all this stuff is going on, the townspeople get shot, and now they're in the mix as well. And then somebody from your side accidentally shoots a villager, and now everybody has to die. Like, you have to kill everybody but the blades, because that's the only thing that can happen. But, and then whatever, that's fine. I mean, it's terrible, but, this is the wasteland. What are you going to do? But what's awful is it's like I do a thing, and now it's like, okay, well, they're all going to go take their say 5 to 10 seconds or whatever to figure out what they're going to do, and they're going to do it, and it's say 10 seconds per person for 20 people, so like I'm waiting 2 to 3 minutes at a minimum until towards the end of the battle, and then I'm like walking slowly around. I have 7 action points, so I'm slowly making my way back to where everybody else is. So I haven't even been able to watch all of this. I'm kind of off in a room. At some point, somebody blocked me in there, and I couldn't leave. It's just
so you're not even you can't even see.
I wasn't even in the middle of it. No.
Yeah.
No. So it could be very, very frustrating.
Yeah, I think the sweet spot for this combat engine is really like, a few, I don't know, 5 to 6, maybe, 8, maybe at the high end enemies.
Right.
And Dogmeat actually Dogmeat's agility was, RAP for Dogmeat, apparently quite high, because Dogmeat was, I don't know, 4 to 5 attacks per round. So that took up a lot of time. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it took up a lot of time. And then I was hitting 5 times, which, that's fun because I get to hit 5 times. But so yeah, it definitely took a long time. But I haven't done that battle yet. I'm actually on the cusp of that now that you gave me the hint on the whole Deathclaw situation, which is a little frustrating, and kind of, we talked about it last episode, but the direction or lack thereof in this game is both is a double-edged sword for me, because I like the discovery of it, but I'm frustrated when I don't find something.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it can be, it can even be like an adventure game in that way, where it's just like, oh, I didn't catch the thing that the designer was putting down. Yeah. I didn't pick it up, and now totally. I'm lost. And it's a very similar. I couldn't get into the mindset, or I just purely missed. I mean, like, I missed this guy Tycho, and I did try to go back. We should probably talk about some of the places we visited or revisited. I did go back to, I believe, Junktown is where you can get Dogmeat.
Yes, Junktown. Mm-hmm.
And I got into the conversation with the person, and then somehow, by the way I got out of the conversation, I couldn't get Dogmeat or resolve the quest unless I just wanted to shoot Dogmeat. So I didn't do that.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't even get into the conversation. Like I said, I think I just walked up.
Yeah, just walked up. Huh.
And I don't know. It's like, I don't know.
Maybe Dogmeat loves the ladies. I don't know.
So what charisma?
My charisma is like 10.
Oh, yeah, right. So it's not charisma. I don't know. Weird.
Luck? I don't know. My luck's not very high.
Maybe luck. Mine's average, though. I didn't focus on that. I think one of my previous playthroughs, I did boost my luck up to see what that would do. But yeah, I mean, yeah, the missing stuff is really a bummer sometimes when you really just. Yeah. Oh, that's what you jog my memory on. Have you used when you're in dialogue with somebody, there's the button for tell me about, where you literally can type in whatever you want?
I was trying it for a while in the Brotherhood of Steel base, because somebody told me about this laser pistol. And I'm like, oh, that sounds cool. I would like to have a laser pistol.
Yeah.
This was before I had a minigun.
Yeah.
But it turns out you can't actually get that. Then, like, I asked everybody, they're like, oh, this person or that person, and I'm like, I'm asking them, it's not showing up in the list of things I can get out of the armory. I'm like, what's going on here? I have to figure that unlocks as a result of, like, now we're going to go storm the base.
Maybe so.
I might be able to get it then.
Because that one scribe, right? She tells you about it, her experimental weapon, and then you go talk to the guy, and he didn't have it.
Yeah, he's like, well, this one's broken. It doesn't have this kind of lens.
Oh, that's right. Right.
He's like, hey, you don't want this one, I'm like, no, give me that one's fine. I'll take it.
I'll repair it.
It's no problem. And so they're like, oh, you should go talk to this person or this person or this person. They can all give you one. And I went and talked to all those people, and they couldn't give me one. There is some sort of roughness around the edges about some of the quests. Where there's a little of the direction you're getting is not really helpful yet. And I definitely have run into things where things are just broken. I went back. So from there, I went back to Necropolis, which is where I lost Ian and killed every mutant, just like that classic Trek: The Next Generation episode, "The Survivors" came to me.
Did you? So do you never get you're never able to talk to the leader there, or did you just take
Set?
Set, I think is his name.
Yeah. By the time I came back, every ghoul was dead.
Because of the super mutants,
because of the super mutants had come in, and I just went in and killed all of them after one of them got to Ian and beat him to a pulp with like a super sledge or something like that. So he got beat up pretty bad, and then I just went and took him on one by one, sometimes 3 or 4 actually, because I can. And actually, I didn't have a minigun at that point. I was just doing it with a pistol. But with the power armor, I had high enough armor that I was not taking a lot of damage.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard, the reason I brought up that tell me about where you can type anything in. I heard from somebody, I don't remember where I heard this from. I was telling somebody about us playing this, and I guess there are some pretty cool Easter eggs or special stuff that if you ask, because you can type anything in there, if you ask certain people certain things, it kind of reveals some interesting stuff. So I keep meaning to look that up, but I'm not going to do it until later on, so I don't spoil too much. But
yeah, no,
it's crazy that was even in. I don't know. It's just as soon as you find that feature, no one really asks you to actually use it, and then you're like, I can type anything I want. So it feels like a throwback to Text Adventure or something, right? Or the King's Quest games where
or Ultima name job.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Maybe that's what it is. Yeah. I'm wondering if maybe in Wasteland 1 it was the same thing too. They had it, so they kind of carried it over. But
no, definitely not a Wasteland 1 because they didn't have the memory for that. Yeah. I mean, I think. Probably you could do like name job to everybody. I didn't even think to do that. But I mean, they usually reveal that stuff in the normal chat, so I don't.
Yeah, there doesn't seem to be a reason to. Right. I tried it a couple times, but I'd asked people about death claws and stuff, and their responses were pretty generic. So. Oh,
I also in Junktown I realized I hadn't. No, this is Hub. I went back to Hub at some point. My order is really screwy because I was kind of, at one point I just went all the way up the West Coast and kind of uncovered everything up there just to wander around, and then I got killed at some point. I was like, oh, I didn't save anywhere along here. I'm not doing that again, but now I know. No, what was I going to say? I went back to Hub, and the Fargo quest with the Deathclaw couldn't resolve it. Had killed the Deathclaw, and I think what had happened was originally I maybe didn't do things in the right order, or had done some things and then reverted to save at some point, and then knew I had to go to the Deathclaw and just went and did the Deathclaw and didn't realize I hadn't done things in a proper order.
The bugs,
logic chains get broken.
Yeah. I mean the possibility space for this game at that time. I mean that's one of the things I think that sets it apart. But I can't imagine debugging this thing with all of that stuff. I mean I can, I actually can't imagine debugging it, and we do these days. And there's great teams out there doing the same stuff. But in that day and age, I bet it was pretty overwhelming. I need to go back and finish that as well because I just wasn't powerful enough. When I'm wondering if it's broken for me too. There's actually a super mutant in that Deathclaw cave that I don't remember what the deal is with that. But so Hub, I haven't gone back to the Hub to do too much. I feel like I did a bunch of stuff there. I went back to Junktown to make sure I finished everything there. Oh, the quest that I can, I guess, never resolve up in Junktown is the thing to deal with Gizmo. I think it's I forget how they word it, something like deal with Gizmo.
Right.
But because I shot him without getting proof, that's just left open. I apparently will never be able to resolve that because he's dead. Like, I've defeated him. I've dealt with him.
Yeah, you've dealt with him, but not to the town's satisfaction.
Right. So they just told me not to come back, even though they let me come back. So the glow, I was going to ask you about the glow, actually.
Okay, yeah, go.
So you went down and got the thing that the Brotherhood, the
holotape.
hollow disc or whatever, yeah. And I want to ask about radiation as well in a second. And everything's off, and I actually spend a lot of time just exploring down in there just to go all up and down the floors. And then I realized probably the power thing has something, you do something with the power, but it's probably going to turn the robots on if you do that. So I decided not to do it because I wasn't powerful enough yet. How much time did you spend did you just get the thing and then leave, or did you go down to the floors, or?
No, I didn't explore that base at all. Okay. I got the holodisc. I found that I was getting so much radiation.
Yeah.
That I ended up, getting back from that originally. I stopped. The game would stop several points on the way. I was like, oh man, another random encounter. And it would just stop me to tell me, you're vomiting a lot because you have radiation poisoning.
Right.
And I had no Rad-X or Radaway or whatever, or Radaway, I guess.
Yeah, Radaway.
So I had no Radaway at that point. I'm like, well, great, thanks for telling. There's nothing I can do about it. But thanks for letting me know. And eventually, that the radiation went away. And eventually, I was no longer addicted to Radaway. But it was like anytime I tried to move around on the map, it's like, every few squares, I'm just going to stop and just have it tell me, you don't feel good. You lost 6 points because you don't feel good because you're addicted, and you've got cravings. Which I like as a mechanic, and I guess it's better than it just getting me all the way to a location and dropping my health to 1. That would be annoying. It's not really a good way to address it in a game where you have an overworld that you're just, is kind of minimally interactive. I kind of get the choices that they made there, but I do feel like it doesn't really support the radiation mechanic very well.
Yeah, it's not. It's pretty.
Or the poisoning, for that matter.
Yeah, and I actually ran into. I think I would have preferred that when you get high radiation sickness, like on the fly, that you would just start losing health or die or something. Because what ended up happening to me as a delayed effect. Because I was just exploring, so I decided to kind of ignore it. So once I got the disc, I kept going down the other floors just to see what was down there. And there's all these robots that are powered off and stuff. But
and that's where you got your power armor.
No, wait, is there?
Sure, there's power armor on that base.
Well, there's power. There's a dead guy with power armor on, but I wasn't able to pick it up. I got power armor from the Brotherhood of Steel.
Yeah. Okay.
Which I can tell that story in a second too, which is an interesting skill-based thing that you probably had we basically probably did that 2 different ways. But I guess the frustration for me is my radiation score or whatever was up to like 5,000 by the time I left that place, because it just kept infecting me. And so when I left, basically it just I didn't really know what my score was because I hadn't tried the Geiger counter out at the first. And so I was trying to use the overworld, but like a couple squares from the glow, I would die. It would just, the white screen would come up and I'd die from being, and so if I hadn't saved before, I actually wouldn't have known the effect that would have had on me. And my score was so high, there was no way I would ever be able to cure myself.
Right.
You know what I mean? So there is an A bug in there for people who are not saving a lot, right? That really you'd have no way out, because you'd be too sick, and they don't even give you that option where you were saying how you can bunny hop and just kind of eventually get over it. That for me, it was so high, like I'd get 2 squares from it and I'd die.
Yeah, you were taking so much damage.
Yeah, apparently.
So you were just getting overwhelmed. I had a few Radaway packs, although I used them so quickly that I ended up getting addicted to Radaway, and that kept me sick for a while. I did at some point, excuse me, this happened several times for me in the game, where I would just take damage. It would say, oh, you took 6 points of damage. And I'd be like, well, what from? I look at my character screen.
Yeah, I've seen that too.
No, I've got no radiation poisoning. I'm not poisoned. All my limbs are fine.
Yeah.
Not fatigued. What's the deal, game? And I'd sit there and I'd, doctor myself, and eventually get back up and, I might take a few more. And I'm just like, what is going on? No idea. No feedback. It just says, oh, you take 6 points. I'm like, what? You don't like me? I mean, what's going on?
There's no food and water kind of situation going on in this game, right?
There's not that I know of.
Yeah, because I had a random encounter in the middle of the desert at one point that said, it stops you and it said, you've run out of water.
Yeah, you feel dehydrated.
You search for 6 hours with no success, and you take X amount of damage. So I was like, wait a second. Am I supposed to be carrying water with me? Because, you can find water in Vault 13 and that sort of stuff.
That's true, yeah.
But I don't know. I guess it's just more health. So speaking of first aid, I've forgotten what those first aid kits are for. I use them, but I don't understand what they're doing for me because they don't give me much health back.
I think they effectively work as a single-use first aid skill. So the first aid skill basically only adds 3 to 6 points back or something. And there's a doctor bag at some point I think you can find, maybe?
Yeah, it is, and I used it immediately and didn't really understand and lost it.
Yeah.
Okay, so I didn't even think... I forgot you can use first aid on yourself and actually get some stuff from it. But then there's a limit, right?
There's a limit, limit within a time period or between rests.
Yeah.
And if you use it several times, eventually just say you think you'll faint if you do that again or something like that.
Yeah.
So they're actively trying not to let you abuse that, whereas they'll happily let you have all the bottle caps. So it's kind of weird the decisions they made that way.
Well, and I think that's another example where talking about sort of telegraphing and basically teaching in the game. Because the skill decks, most of the skills there, you can use, quote unquote, use them on anything really, right? Like your cursor turns to that gold color, and there's this sense of kind of experimentation where you can actually try stuff. But the feedback is not, we've just come so far when it comes to that sort of usability. And It's cool that you can try to be flexible with stuff, but just there's so many situations that it just doesn't do anything, so it's kind of misleading you. But yeah, that makes sense with the first aid kits.
If I were to fix something like the barter, because they have a time limit in the game, what I probably would have done with the barter was to make certain things available in one town and not in another, and give you a bonus to bringing stuff from one place to another. So you'd be eating up this vital resource of time. If you run out of time, you lose the game. So you really have to be careful.
Right.
But being able to pull fine wines from Junktown and bring them to Hub and get big money for that and have that quest available to you, essentially a quest only because of that, or only for you only to be the person who notices that. I noticed you have some wine there. That's, people are looking for that in Hub or whatever. I mean, just stuff like that, I think would have been the way I would probably address the imbalance in barter. Because as it is, it's just so overpowered to have a barter thing. And it's one of the 3 archetypes, that you can have the guy who's going to have all the money. Which is maybe its own weird commentary. Oh, and you
didn't modify him at all, so he's that way.
No, I didn't. Yeah, I might have upped his charisma 1 and lowered his luck 1 or something like that, or maybe his agility 1. I don't remember. But I did do a very, very minor tweak, just literally 1 point on one of the special attributes. So, hey, anything else you want to cover? We're at about 55 minutes.
You got your power armor last time, and I wanted to cover that really quickly because I think we did it pretty differently. You just talked your way through it, right?
I walked up to one of the guards and they said, talk to him. And I said, I don't want to talk to the other guard. And that was an animated character. and he said, "Oh, we're not really taking new people. Well, unless you wanted to do this quest, we need this thing from the glow." And it's way down in the southeast, and then the glow pops up on your
Cabot
map. Yeah,
I think that guy's name's Cabot. Yeah,
yeah. So I was like, oh, okay, and I just went and did it. Came back, and then in terms of actually getting the power armor, there's a character in the third or fourth floor, one of the lower floors, who's actually in a side room on the far side of the base from the elevator.
Yeah,
who has a beaten up, broken thing that you can repair.
Yeah.
So at that point, I threw some points in repair and repaired it.
So did you need to get the part though?
Yes, and then there was a part that you needed to get from somebody on the first floor, I think, next to the armory, or from the irascible old dude who has his own room over on the west side of the base.
Right.
So near the elevator.
Did you who did you get the piece from?
I got it from the weapon armory guy because I had already pissed off the other guy. I had gone in when I first entered the base and talked to him and pissed him off somehow, and he was
got it. Helpful. Okay, because I tried to talk my way through to the basically the quartermaster or whatever, and I just didn't have an option. So I was stuck for a while on how I was going to get that piece. And I knew it was probably in that locker for that, Romulus or whatever that guy's name is. But he was also pissed at me. And then it kind of occurred to me the way that they've situated him. And because my stealth was so high, I actually was able to sneak into his room without him knowing and just take it out of the locker and then walk away.
See, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
I like that.
So it was
that's
a nice little... It didn't dawn on me at first, so I was kind of stuck for a little while. And kind of pretty bummed because I was worried I wasn't going to be able to get the armor. Because when you walk in without stealth on into that room, he hears you, even though he's not facing, and he comes in and says, "Hey, what are you doing?" And they even kick you out of the base at that point because they call you a thief. So I did save scum and reload that, and then snuck back in and was able to do it. So it's a nice little tidbit.
Cool. Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's cool. That's cool. I'm glad you had another option. All right, well, let's take a very brief break and come back. We only have a little bit of feedback this time, so we'll be pretty brief, but then we'll talk about finishing the game.
Sounds good.
Okay, back in a bit. Welcome back from the break. We are now, that is 3 episodes behind us, which means we're on to the 4th and final episode, and we're going to finish this game.
Yeah, I'm gonna go through swinging my fists. They're gonna go down swinging.
I am going to carry around my gold-plated weapons, my gold-plated bullets, and take out everything in my path. It will be easy for me to do, I think.
So jealous because I remember loving that side of the game. I feel like the gun and gunplay stuff was really handled well, and it's a very weird way for me to play. Like I said before, I'm fighting all of my instincts on this one, and it's been fun, academically, I think, to play this way. Because I'm seeing things I wouldn't normally see. But I'm really dreading the end for sure. Oh, and I didn't even
I think you're going to be able to sneak through a lot of stuff, though. I think I'm going to have to fight my way all the way through, and you're actually just going to kind of sneak around everything.
That's a good point. I'm definitely going to stress test that.
I think we're going to have another System Shock 2 moment where I have the most challenging ending for the game, despite certain advantages early on.
Yeah, I will not forget that reversal for me in System Shock 2. That was pretty surprising and unexpected.
Yeah.
And fun. So
no, that's good. So if you're playing along, finish off the game. We know that we've got basically dealing with that military base, and then, as we mentioned last time, the Cathedral are all that is left. So
that's it.
That is what we got, and we'll hit that up in a week's time. In the meantime, we did get a review on iTunes. I do like to read these. We always appreciate them, and thanks so much. This one from Necrogeist, which I'm pretty sure is his real name. Almost certainly.
Must be.
I mean, because look at what it is backwards.
What?
Zygerken. Yeah, obviously a real name. He says, this show has become a solid addition to my video games podcast rotation, alongside Kotaku's Split Screen and Idle Thumbs. Brett and Tim take the time to dive into a classic game for 4 episodes, unpacking not just what made it work, but also how it has influenced modern game design. Highly recommend this for anyone with an interest in video games. No technical background required to enjoy. So that's what we're aiming for, and I feel like we're in pretty good company there. Between
amazing, yeah.
Chris Ramo and Jake and Nick and occasionally Sean, and then Kotaku is Jason Schreier and my old friend Kirk Hamilton. So all good people, and it's a pleasure to be in their company. Thank you very much.
Flattered, yeah, amazing. I'm just having fun. I'm glad people are enjoying it, but it's a fun thing to do for sure.
Yeah, it has, and it keeps us playing games, and especially you.
I don't know where my time is coming from, but it's happening.
Yeah, you're spending less time on. I was going to say you don't spend time on Twitter or Facebook, so I don't even know. I don't either. I don't know where your time's coming from. I'm taking out of sleep. I'm getting about 15 minutes of sleep a night, so I'm good.
Good plan. I should try that. Yeah. Truthfully, WoW is cutting into my WoW time, which I'm mixed on.
That's the thing. It's not that you don't play games; it's that you play game.
Yeah, the game.
This is taking you away from that.
Yeah,
your poor guild.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we do love to read your feedback when we have it. So if you want to send us some, you can send it to us at Twitter at DevGameClub. You can send it to devgameclub@gmail.com. You can also leave a review on iTunes. Apparently those really help to reach new listeners, and that's great. We're keeping that 5 stars going, so please keep that going. Complaints to Gmail. 5 stars to iTunes. That's what we're trying to work here.
Is that how that works?
That's what we're trying to do. Yeah, that's what we're trying to do. But in the meantime, I'm at Brett_Duville, and he is
at Tim Longo Jr., the JR at the end.
And I guess, do you want to, and we haven't talked about this, do you want to tease a little bit the things we've got in the works? We got a couple things maybe coming up. We're looking at a Halloween theme game.
I think it's a good idea. That was Brett's offering there. I think it's a good timing, good theme. We got some maybe a good obvious classic coming up for Halloween. So I'm looking forward to that. That'll be a fun one.
We got that, and then we've also talked about a little bonus content to go along with each.
Oh, that yes, the good tease
each game. We'll probably have a short 20 to 30 minute. Not a deep dive, not these sort of scholarly going back over all kinds of topics.
So scholarly.
Yeah. Oh yeah, man. I have footnotes. But more of a just sort of, hey, here's our first blush impressions of a game related to a game that we're playing in the main cast, and so that look for that soon. I don't think it's going to come out between 3 and 4 this time. Maybe right after 4. We'll see how it works out.
Yeah.
And then finally, we are working on a guest for this. Not gonna jinx it by giving any names, but I think that's gonna come together. So
cool. Yeah, excited about that too. Yeah, keep our guest streak going.
Yep.
Other than our Eastern
Japanese
games.
Yeah, very hard with the Japanese games.
Which I'm working on that too. We have a couple of future games we're thinking about that we might get somebody from across the pond that way. So we'll see.
That'll be amazing. All right. Well, I guess that's it for us tonight. Good night, sir.
Good night.